Good afternoon, or I guess good evening, good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. I'm Lauren Rosen, and this is Purely OCD. I'm waiting on Kelly Frankie, and glad to have you all with us today. I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from, if you care to share. And for those of you, as you join, I just want to make note of the fact that sometimes when things are going by in the chat and the feed, we can't really keep track of that as we go because it goes pretty quick. So if you have questions, you can put them in the question mark in the lower right. Ooh, Canada. Two Canadians and an Australian. How wonderful. Wow, Costa Rica. We got people from all over joining us today, my friend.
Nice.
Yep.
How's the weather in Costa Rica?
I bet it's gorgeous. I bet it's like glorious.
Send us pictures.
Portugal.
Oh,
This is so exciting.
that's even prettier, maybe.
I mean, it's all beautiful.
Although we do live in California, Southern California, so
Yeah.
it's not Portugal, but
It's not. That is a fact.
definitely not.
Definitely
So.
not. So we're here to talk about our favorite things once again on the third installation of our favorite things of Purely OCD.
Yes.
So we were just sort of chatting about what we wanted, what this week's favorite thing is going to be. And
Drum roll.
Drum roll, please. I'll let you.
Identity crisis and
Whee!
how OCD makes you question everything about your identity.
Yeah.
You know, like, what if I'm not sexually attracted to this gender? And what if I'm really a psychopath and a murderer? What if I'm really a pedophile? Or what if I'm really not who I think I am? Or
Whoa.
This isn't what love should be.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't really love this one.
And maybe I'm a total fraud, although this just gets into sort of generalized anxiety and imposter syndrome. But I think it all, which, for good measure. But yeah, I think, and in addition to that, when we go into treatment, we try to stop doing compulsions. And as we pull back on the compulsions, there can be this narrative of, oh, I'm bad for not doing this compulsion because it could help somebody or it could
save somebody.
Exactly. Or
like I shouldn't date somebody because what if I'm lying to them and I really am not attracted to that gender.
Right.
Or that person.
Yeah. So this whole idea that maybe you're bad for for doing the exposure or for doing the response prevention, either way.
Guilt.
Guilt's
like, hi.
Friend. Yeah.
I'm your best friend now.
Hello.
Oh, hi. And then depression's like, I'm going to lay on you and make things really hard.
Yeah. Just right on your chest. If you could. Yeah. Thank you. Stay still. Thanks. So if anyone out there is dealing with the questioning of identity related to OCD and the challenges related to recovery related to identity, please feel free to chime in and throw some questions in that question mark area.
Yes. So what are some common ones that you've seen in your own practice?
So I think you started off with one of the biggest, which is sexual orientation OCD, and this idea that like maybe I don't really know myself. Maybe I really don't know my sexual orientation. And I suppose this comes up with anxiety related to gender identity as well. Mm-hmm. This just idea of deep down, that place, wherever mm-hmm. that is, deep down, I just don't know myself, and I don't know what I like and or who I am, right?
I'm lying to myself.
Yes.
I'm in denial.
Woo. Oh, the D word, man.
The big old D word. And not the fun D.
No. Not no. Not that one. We're talking about the
Yeah.
denial word. No, it's that phrase, that idea is so central
Yeah.
for sure. What about you? I mean, obviously there are other areas too, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, what if I'm really a psychopath and I want to murder somebody or I'm gonna murder somebody? It's like usually those people that have harm obsessions come in, they're like the sweetest,
Mm.
kindest people,
Yeah,
and it makes sense why it would attack.
yeah.
Um, but it's like, who am I if I'm this thing, this monster, right? And they start judging it, and that's where we get into the guilt aspect of things, because now we're
Yes.
fusing with it, and then it makes it so much harder to then do the exposure work. Not to mention we're dealing with a whole nother unhelpful emotion like guilt, which is really strong.
Yep. Crushed it. I think in addition to that, and I mean it's funny enough, it's just a subtype of harm OCD ultimately is the pedophilia theme. And that one, talk about people worrying that I'm a monster, right? Like that
Big time.
fear that comes up so much.
Yes. And scrupulosity as well,
Mm,
right? Is like, if maybe I'm really not a person of faith.
right.
Maybe I'm, really worshiping the devil because I'm not doing stuff right.
Yes. Yes. Maybe
Because I saw
that's
666.
yep. And I didn't feel the right way when I prayed. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe my intention is off when I'm doing things, and it's really geared toward devil worship, to your point. And then we can go into the moral scrupulosity round realm. Oh my gosh, I
Mm-hmm.
can't speak today.
It's okay. It's Monday. This is your practice run for the rest of your week.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. So we get warmed
Okay.
up for our clients.
And we're just warming up, you guys. Oh my God. Um, so moral scrupulosity and the
Hmm.
fear that maybe you're not living up to your own moral standards, that you're not a good person or that you're not living by your moral code. That's one way where your identity can just get sideswiped. That you couldn't see it, but I was really revving up for like a side hook.
She's
Yeah.
gonna just do immediate concussion to the side.
Immediately concussed. Yeah, that's what OCD does.
Yeah. Um, it could go into, hmm,
By the way, somebody asked about us doing a live on sensory motor OCD. We actually have one of those already. So you can look at our website, you can look at YouTube, you could look at Instagram TV. We're all over the place, man. And then you can also go on the podcast apps because we're on there too. So sensory
yeah,
motor OCD exists already. And not that we won't do more on it, but
yeah, there's plenty to do on all of the content areas. We'll be swinging by all of them again at some point.
waving
um,
happy
yeah,
trails to you. Um,
doing
I
a
don't,
tour, a Euro tour, a
yes.
European tour,
Yeah. I don't know why I'm singing on our episodes recently, but that's where we're at, I
because we need
guess.
a little joy, is what it is.
Well,
Um, so moral, where was I going with that?
shoot.
Mm, sucker. I forgot.
It happens.
It's Monday.
It is, see, it's the warm up. So I think, though, what we were generally speaking toward is that you are not living, like the fear is that you're not living in alignment with who you want to be. And therefore, that can really get at that identity piece of like, well, what if I don't really mean that? Like, what if I don't really love that person because I am being disingenuous with them somehow or something?
Right. Hmm. Definitely the taboo stuff for sure. All that cross all related to that identity stuff. Existential stuff as well, which is,
Mm,
like What if I'm not living the life that I am supposed to be living? Or what if I'm not being the right person in this world? Or
Yeah.
what if this isn't even me?
Whoa. Tilt. No, it's that, yeah, that one's tough. It's like, what if I'm a false version of myself? And what if I've been inhabited by somebody who's not like, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking now of different types of amnesia, going back to my undergraduate in psychology and all the talk that well, I guess it a little bit in grad school too, about how the sort of organic brain injury can show us different parts of the brain and what they're for, and the idea that you could actually feel like you've been sort of inhabited by another person, or that the
Yeah.
people around you look like them, but they're not really them.
Yeah.
Good times.
That's fun.
Yeah, that was a little side note. That was a little derailing.
Yeah. And, certainly people have obsessions directly like that.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least I've seen it a few times where it's like, well, they look like them, they act like them, but I mean, it's not what you're talking about,
No,
yeah,
but
but it's that fear, right? It's like, I know that's them, but
what
they're
if it's
different.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if they're just different and I don't know how, in what way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
and actually, I didn't plan to talk about this, but that's where I think the idea, looking at identity and how we relate to identity, can be so important in recovery, as it can be just in general. We are so bound to this idea of like, this is the person who I am. And one of the ways to navigate this, I think, in recovery is to have a little bit of a looser grip on what it means to be you, and to recognize that we have this sort of narrative, this story of who we are, but we're constantly changing from moment to moment to moment, evolving and becoming different people. I'm going a little bit out there, but I think that it's important to recognize that, instead of, especially because when our identities start to interfere with our ability to change too, because some of us have these narratives like, oh, I'm not capable of doing this.
Right.
And
Or I'm
if
somebody who's always had OCD and now I don't. So paralysis kicks in.
that's for sure. Yeah. And that's, I think, a divergence from that. But yes, totally. That's another way
Sorry.
that they no, not at all. I just wanted to like make sure to delineate between the two, because I think they're both important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And there's definitely different, life stages where it's like you go from being a kid to like being a teenager, and being a teenager to somebody who's going to college, and then going to college to becoming an adult, and an adult to someone who's married and has a child, or whatever it is. I think those are definitely locations in time where OCD can really go, things are different. I don't know if I'm
Hmm.
liking this. So let me find something that can really mess you up.
Yeah, let me throw a wrench in here because this is what I do
Yeah.
best. I think that generally times of transition are a big deal, and in terms of triggering OCD. But what's interesting is that what you're pulling in about the identity, because so often these big transitions do touch upon our sense of self as humans.
Yeah.
And so it's like your sense of self is on shaky ground, and all of a sudden it's like, well, how do you know that you're even who you think you are, as you transition into this new realm?
Totally. I think we may have been the first to talk about it like that.
Yeah.
But that's so true.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, like going into teenage years, and I remember thinking a lot about it and saying, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who I am. I don't sound like how I used to sound, and I don't talk like I don't talk like that. I don't act like that. And now
Yeah. Yeah.
turns out it's probably anxiety.
Probably. Well, so the feeling that something's off or wrong that is so central to OCD. And you take that, and then there's sort of a self awareness that comes in, and that almost hyper awareness of yourself. And then all of a sudden, to start, so it's like when they fuse together this element of no, something's wrong,
Something's off.
something's not right with me, and I'm not me anymore. That, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Should we see if there are any questions
Hmm.
about the hold,
Yeah, and I'm
please?
not getting any updates at all on my end, so I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
even
Okay.
who's on. And yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. A lot of the questions that are not necessarily related, which we do try to keep them on topic. Um, oh, so somebody didn't, it's not necessarily a question, but did I really mean that thought, or am I just trying to call it OCD when I'm actually a terrible person? That's something that maybe you could speak to while I'm looking
Yeah.
through.
So this idea that we want to treat our thoughts equally by saying, oh, this is a thought, this is a thought, because when we start to separate it like, oh, well, that's OCD, I think at the beginning that might be helpful, especially if you're really fused to those thoughts and believing them to be true. But after a while, it's almost like it can become compulsive and reassurance giving and saying, oh, well, that's just OCD. Right? It's like, well, it's just a thought. And thoughts aren't good. They're not inherently good or bad. They're just thoughts. We want to kind of treat them as neutral. It doesn't matter if they're OCD or not. It doesn't. And in
Yeah.
fact, in some cases, depending on the client, I've said, we're not going to call it OCD. Like, OCD is a bad word. We're not using it. It's a 4-letter word.
It's a 3 letter, 4 letter word.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's a 3-letter, 4-letter word. When it's
Yep.
off the table, man.
Yep. Yeah.
And something happens in that person where they like, what do you mean we can't call it OCD anymore? And they can get really triggered. And that shows us, again, it proves we're on the right track because, and that's the right timing, by the way, or, the right, you know what I mean.
Point in treatment, like that sometimes it's a bridge, I think is what you're speaking to, right? Like recognizing that your thoughts are not inherently indicative of who you are is
Mm-hmm.
an initial step, but there's a point at which we kind of have to let go of that anchor too. That we have to accept uncertainty about that as well. Is that what you
Yeah. And
mean?
I think it can happen pretty organically without there ever being a huge intervention. But honestly, I've had a few where I've had to say, nope, we're not calling it OCD.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
and it's been
Because it
a good
becomes
exposure.
compulsive.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that reassurance. And then on top of that, we don't want to judge any thought, OCD or not, by saying, oh, I'm a monster because I had that thought. Because I think that's what you said the question was.
Yeah, the question was, did I really mean that thought, or am I just trying to call it OCD when I'm actually a terrible person? And I think the other piece here is, and the reason I wanted to call it out because it does speak to this identity piece,
For
is
sure.
throwing the question out there: is there a thought that exists that makes somebody a terrible person? I think that's an interesting question. I mean, I think you and I both probably feel exactly the
Yeah.
same way about it, but I think it might be worth mentioning to.
Well, I think in some religions too, where both of I have, Lauren and I have both worked with, thoughts can sometimes, depending, be just as bad as action, right?
Yep.
And I say bad in quotes because that's the way they're interpreting it. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, so it gets a little tricky in that category of things. But other than that, no. Well,
No.
even in that case, I'd say no, and I challenge it. But there's some complexities in certain content areas where you have to, I don't know, manage it better or navigate it better.
Yeah. there's a, and with the realm of particular religions, I think that's where it's important to discuss the difference between thoughts and thinking as well. And kind of
Yeah.
that's also the secret to the sense
Oh
that we're
gosh,
doing
I know.
something wrong if we're having thoughts about something. And there's volitional thinking, which, okay, yeah, we could probably all agree that there are areas that are going to support us, that if we're like actively thinking about things versus not, right? Like, I just mean in terms of even with recovery, right? We know that constant rumination trying to get certainty is not going to serve us, for instance. But I think, but delineating between those two and saying, well, you're going to have thoughts. Now, if you're taking it and you're running with it and you're spending a lot of time churning about it, maybe that's what they're talking about. When we look at the thoughts being bad, but that's actually a
Right.
behavior.
Agreed.
It's thinking. So, and again, not that
Yeah, I
thinking
didn't mean to bring up like this very nuanced complexity of treatment, but
but that's what we're here for, friend.
yeah. No,
I
I know.
think.
But we don't need to spend too much time on it.
Anyway, I don't know if that's useful, but
Thoughts are
the
thoughts,
thoughts are thoughts. They're neither good nor bad
right?
because they're nothing. They're
They're
just stories.
visitors. Yeah.
Well, and we've said this before, but this is, Stephen King would be in jail so many times over if thoughts were a problem, if thoughts meant anything inherently, because dude's got a messed up mind
And
in the
he's making
best
a lot of
way.
money. Yeah.
Yes, he is. Yep, he sure is. So,
Yeah.
the only other question that I saw that was somewhat related to this topic was about, and I know I just realized I just saw the time, so we're pretty much over time or at time. But what we can end with this, because this question of guilt came up during the live earlier, is like, how do I stop feeling guilty about unwanted blasphemous thoughts? It's torture.
Mm.
And yes, I'm sorry that you're going through that. And oh my gosh, I really can't talk today.
It's okay. This is just a practice run.
Okay, take two.
Take two.
So how do I stop feeling guilty? The answer from our vantage point, if you're feeling guilty, for instance, if one is feeling guilty about having certain thoughts and that identity crisis is coming into play, we actually don't want to get rid of the guilt feeling, which is so counterintuitive. It's really down to accepting the possibility that we don't know who we are,
Right.
and that maybe, yeah, maybe these unwanted thoughts aren't actually unwanted. Maybe they're wanted. Maybe that
Yeah.
makes me bad. And then to feel the sense of anxiety, the sense of guilt that comes up as a result of that, and make lots and lots of space.
Yeah. Exactly. And
Yeah.
also knowing, you know, the front end of things is like, objectively speaking, you've probably done nothing wrong. You've just had a thought. But, just like everything, that can become compulsive. And
Yeah.
that's why going to what Lauren's saying is accepting that we don't know, but lots of compassion too.
Well
You did,
outlined. It's such a good point because, yeah, we
yeah.
I tend to jump to, yeah, let's not engage at all. But at the same token, to recognize, like, okay, we're not saying that we think you are bad. It's just that we have to accept that that's a possibility, and
Right.
otherwise, it rules us. It owns us.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Guilt can come along for the ride when you read your imaginals and you're doing your exposures. We just don't want to buy into it and be like, oh, yes, guilt, tell me more. It's no different than any other feeling. Yes,
Listen,
I'm
let me
listening. Go
listen.
on.
Oh, go on. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
good talk.
Good talk.
Thanks for joining us, you guys. And yeah, I guess
And
we'll see you around the bend next week.
yeah, yes. And happy holiday. Merry Christmas for those who
Yes.
celebrate
For those who
Christmas.
celebrate Merry Christmas and happy Boxing Day. for for the Brits who watch.
Oh,
It's the day after Christmas. Yeah.
what does that mean?
Do you
Not
know? I
like
don't.
the sport boxing, I assume. You mean
No.
like boxing, like, oh, are they boxing up their decorations?
Actually, I don't know why it's called Boxing Day. Is that weird? It's just the day
No.
after Christmas it's called Boxing Day, and it's a thing in the UK.
Do you want me to tell you something that blew my mind and it shouldn't have, and then we can end?
Yeah, of course I
Is
do.
that in Australia right now, it's summer. Eight, no, spring.
I know. It's
They
crazy.
celebrate Christmas in the hot weather.
I know it's
Boom.
weird, right?
I don't know, like, of course, naturally, but it occurred to me, and I was like, no, this is not right. This is wrong. It must be rectified in
This
some
is
way.
inaccurate. Oh wait, when people would originally unbox their presents. Is that right? I didn't know that. Oh, that's so crazy.
The day after
See?
Christmas.
Yeah, I'm half British, so but I didn't know that. So that's cool. Yeah, one last thing. Can I add one thing? Because I want to
Please.
say a happy other holiday. So I was thinking about this the other day because this time of year is also it's winter solstice,
Mm,
or if you're on the other side of the world, it's summer solstice.
right.
And so, yeah, I was just thinking about the Australia thing too, or like anyone in the Southern Hemisphere is and right on the brink of that and the
Wow.
longest day of the year. So, but I think it's tomorrow,
It
the
sounds right.
solstice. So happy solstice.
Happy solstice. Happy thoughts.
Or unhappy
No, yeah,
ones.
I didn't mean that. I meant like have fun having the thoughts.
Yeah, enjoy.
Happy trails.
Celebrate with whatever thoughts you're having. It's
Yes.
yeah.
So thank you, friend.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
friend.
you all, and we will see
Yes.
you on the flip side.
Yes, sounds good. Bye.
Bye.